No.
Rabbi, why do Jews reject Jesus? And I mean, looking at it historically, why didn't they just out the gate recognize, dude, this is the Messiah. This is the promised one. This is our Messiah. Why don't they accept it? What's the problem with I guess I could use the term. What's the problem with the Jews, man? What, as Christians will say, they're hard-hearted. They don't see the truth. They don't have spiritual eyes, et cetera, et cetera. But what is the truth from a Jewish side?
The answer is that it's the Bible. It's passages, soaring messianic passages in the Jewish scriptures, and nothing that Jesus did bears any resemblance to what the Hebrew prophet said the Messiah is supposed to accomplish. It's really that simple. You know, the Jewish people would have loved to have a Messiah during the first century. For those who don't know, it's not like in our time we can get on a plane in 11 hours, be there, and the nice, friendly people. That was during the Roman Empire. We were under the heel of the empire. We would have loved a Messiah. The problem was that what he did, we are told by the church, bears no resemblance to anything that we find in the Jewish scriptures. Let's take a look at a messianic passage that's so famous that even the United Nations, I'm not a fan, had the brains to put it on the wall of the UN. On 42nd Street and First Avenue, northeast corner, is the Isaiah Wall. This is the United Nations. So you imagine you want to come up with something fairly uncontroversial. The book of Isaiah is considered holy by about 1 out of 2 people on this planet. Okay? All right, so I'm not going far afield. I'm not reaching. There's not an inference. In the end of days, this is Isaiah chapter 2, verse 2. Really simple, okay? The Lord, his temple be raised above all mountains, above the hills, and all the nations will stream to it. Next verse, verse 3. People will say, come, let us go to the mountain of the Lord, the temple of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us his ways so that we may walk in his paths. In verse 4, believe it or not, we have 6 words that tell us about the Messiah himself. 6 words in Hebrew. He will judge between the nations, and he will rebuke many people. That's it. No dying for anybody's sins. No resurrection from the dead, no dying on a cross, no lamb talk, none of this stuff. And what will they do? The world will do this. They will beat their swords into plowshares, their spears into pruning hooks. Lo yisa goy el goy cher v'lo yilmudu oid milchama. Nation will not lift up sword against nation, neither will they learn of war anymore. Okay? These are the most numinous, ecstatic messianic prophecies in all of the Hebrew Bible. It's actually mentioned in 2 places. It's mentioned here in Isaiah 2 and almost verbatim in Micah chapter 4. Okay. It made it to the United Nations. The United Nations can agree that's an appropriate text. And it says this is what will happen ba'achris hayomim, in the end of days. That means there are texts that are controversial. This is not one of them. Now listen very carefully. Did anything Jesus do, did anything in the first century occur that remotely resembles this? Nothing. Was there peace during the first century? Did the nations take their implements of war and transform them into implements of agriculture? Did that occur? No, it's just the opposite. The first century was riddled with war between the Jews and the Romans, between the Romans and other groups. There wasn't a temple built, there was a temple destroyed. It bears no resemblance to that. Now here we're going to go, here's where we go nuclear, okay? You are not ready for what you're about to hear. This passage that is so famous, in how many, there are 27 books in the Christian Bible, 27 books in the Christian canon. Of those 27 books, in how many of them is this passage quoted? Just think. This is There's no controversy. These are messianic passages. Without doubt, the most famous. Of the 27 books in the Christian Bible, of the 89 chapters in the Gospels, how many times? I mean, after all, we are told that the Christian Bible is there to tell us about what? The Messiah. I mean, am I like setting up a straw man and toppling it? Listen very carefully. I don't know if you've ever heard this before. So I know Paul, as you said in 2 Corinthians chapter 3, seeks to characterize the Jews as blind scales, veils, and shmales over our eyes. As it turns out, my friends, Isaiah chapter 2 is never quoted in the New Testament. What? You heard me right. Isaiah chapter 2 is never quoted. How is it possible that the most important verses in the entire Jewish Bible, arguably, that are messianic, appear nowhere in a book that purports to tell us about the Messiah? Nothing more important than that. Does that not, if you're a Christian listening to my voice right now, does that not raise some curiosity that passages, in contrast, that bear no resemblance to the Messiah, like King David writing, my God, why hast thou forsaken me?" That means there's nothing in Psalm 22 that says this is going to happen in the future. The Messiah is not mentioned in Psalm 22. And I'm taking a really famous passage. I'm steel manning this. How is it possible that a passage that's written in the first person, King David speaking, the author, whoever wrote Psalm 22, is speaking first person, and he's crying out, my God, why hast thou forsaken me?" That passage is selected with the trackball, white letters on a blue background, and then pasted into the mouth of Jesus, his dying words on the cross. You'll find in the book of Mark, the cry of dereliction. That makes it. And there's nothing in that chapter that tells you he's talking about the Messiah. In fact, quite the contrary. It's all in the first person, and it's written in the past tense. Like, why did you forsake me? Not like, why are you going to forsake me in 1,000 years from now? A little footnote here. Jesus lived about 1,000 years after King David. I mean, and then people think the Jews are blind. The people think like the Jews are just reckless rejectionists. We're the seed of the devil, John 8:44. There's a demon in us. We're blind. God has brought salvation to the Gentiles to provoke jealousy among the Jews. Really? Really? Don't you think there's something more likely going on here? That the core messianic passages in the Bible that are not controversial. Okay? So I'm not going to passages which are controversial. I'm taking, let's just take the Isaiah 11. Predators will lie together with their prey side by side. Children will be able to play in a den where there are poisonous snakes, figuratively conveying powerfully, in a way that only Isaiah could, that there will be peace among people where formerly there was not peace. The knowledge of God will cover the world as the water covers the sea. Isaiah chapter 11, verse 9. Please look it up in your King James Bible. It doesn't make a difference who translated it. And then you come to the Jews and say, and I'm not saying you, I'm saying Paul does this, Even as they have,
don't blame
not
me.
You. I blame you a little bit, not so much. And then Paul says, even as they have of the Jews who both killed the Lord Jesus Christ and their own prophets, contrary to all mankind, forbidding us to preach to the Gentiles. You know what that's from? That's 1 Thessalonians. You know what that means, 1 Thessalonians? That means that's the oldest surviving literature ever written about Christianity. That's the oldest Christian book that survives. There are probably books that are older, but that's the oldest. 1 Thessalonians, we could date that to 49 or 50. That's really early. And the Jews, bingo. Really? Maybe the core teachings of the church are opposed by the Hebrew Bible? I rest my case.
אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל